Bringing you the latest on the revival of the ancestral faith of Northern Europe and the awakening of the European descended peoples everywhere. The gods and goddesses never went away. They are with us always, and now they stir, and we reclaim our spiritual birthright. A glorious dawn awaits. Hail our awakening. Hail Asatru rising. Mark wrote to say why he joined the AFA. I have been impressed with Steve since I became awakened to my ancestral tradition. And of the organizations out there, I think the AFA is the one that is most on target. So I would like to strengthen it. Thank you, Mark. We're always trying to improve what we do. The AFA is the work of many dedicated men and women, and I am fortunate and proud to represent them. Bethany writes to say, I have been studying Asatru for over 3 years. I am tired of being alone in my practices and beliefs and would like to become a part of something bigger than myself. Welcome, Bethany. That's a common reaction and ties in with our theme for today, which is community. One can certainly be an individual practitioner of Asatru. Some people have no choice because they don't know of anyone near them who practices our faith, and some people just don't want to meet with others. The great majority of us, however, look forward to the fellowship of other people who follow our ancestral religion and are greatly enriched by it. Indeed, I believe it is possible to experience Asatru at its best only in association with a group of like-minded men and women. And that, my friends, is what community is all about. Now, folks who have been Asatru only for a few years may not recall that the AFA was energetically promoting community about a decade ago. We had, or more to the point, thought we had, a piece of land on which we could base such a community. By community, I don't mean a commune or some inwardly turned cultish group, but rather a situation where each family would have its own private home on its own land, but would meet several times a week on land owned by the community to worship the gods, weed the garden, operate small businesses, and so forth. We spoke of tribalization, a term, by the way, that I would not use today, and modeled our efforts on the traditional structure of the Germanic tribes many centuries ago. That endeavor fell apart over the issue of land ownership, and I was not successful in getting strong support for the tribalist idea from the AFA as a whole. As usual, we were just too far ahead of the times. Now, times have caught up with us, and the idea of Asatru communities is quite popular. The AFA is still interested in communities, and we are actively working along these lines. We don't call them tribes anymore because that word has a negative connotation to many of the people we want to attract. Rightly or wrongly, they suggest isolation, cultism, and primitivism, and none of these things are what we have in mind. We just call what we are building communities, and they may take any of a number of different forms. Is it possible for the AFA, which is a national organization, to build communities across the country and around the world? Of course it is. Sometimes we hear the argument that communities can only be built from the ground up. Well, yes and no. There is no substitute for personal contact, and that implies geographical proximity. But a national organization can provide the theological and ideological basis, and in our case, that basis is described in the Declaration of Purpose of the Asatru Folk Assembly and in the other relevant documents of the AFA. You see, we are not interested in just creating Asatru communities. We are interested in creating Asatru communities with a particular outlook and a specific program, the outlook and the program of the AFA. This is where the folk builders come in. Folk builders are the AFA representatives in a particular state or states. They welcome new members, stay in contact with old ones, organize get-togethers of AFA members, and, in effect, create community in one form or another, while at the same time recruiting other interested people to become AFA members. Folk builders are the ones who make the AFA real and relevant on a local level. But, you may say, that's fine on a local level, but how do you get those people to feel any connection with other AFA members on the other side of the country? How can an AFA member in New York feel close to an AFA member in California? We have at our fingertips social media that were never available to even our recent ancestors, much less our forefathers and foremothers in tribal times. Now, I am the first to admit the limitations of these media. Nevertheless, they are, number one, a great way for people to meet each other in cyberspace in order to arrange a meeting in the real world, and, number two, to stay in touch after they have met in person. The missing link is the in-person contact, and not merely contact, but significant experience. AFA gatherings provide exactly that. Ritual is, or should be, an intensely emotional thing with the power to bind people together out of all proportion to the time spent together as measured on the clock or the calendar. If this experience is refreshed every year or even every few years, powerful bonds can be created, a true community. For example, I spoke with one of our members on the phone a couple of days ago. We had met once before at midsummer a little over a year ago, where I joined her and her husband in marriage. It was as if we had parted only last week, and I felt a very real connection with her and her family. Sure, it's great to see your community members every week or so, but that is not essential for building bonds, even around the world. Here's another example. I am sure there is no former Marine in this country who, if called from his sickbed, would not respond to another Marine who needed him, even if he had never met that individual. Every Marine is eternally connected to every other Marine. True, we in the AFA cannot match the experience of combat or a boot camp, but we can provide other intense experience that will bind us together. The AFA can create community among members who are spread over great geographical distances. Think, then, of the closeness that exists between members of an AFA community who are in close and frequent contact with each other at the local level, bound by blood, by religion, by culture, by a common folk-centered way of looking at the world, and by close physical proximity. They will be tight indeed. What is the road forward for AFA communities? How do we proceed? If you are an AFA member, take a look at the Members Forum. You will find sections dealing with personal finances, fitness and health, self-sufficiency, brewing, crafts, parenting, our newsletter for children, gardening, cooking, items wanted, items for sale, advertisements for products and services, and much more. We have the framework for community right there, online. At the local and regional levels, community starts with meeting other AFA members locally and doing things with them. The folk builder for the area can initiate that, or members can take the lead themselves. It usually starts simply, a meetup in a pub or a coffee shop, get-togethers at someone's home for social and religious observances, various forms of mutual assistance, and they're on the way. They may create something they want to call a kindred, but whatever label they hang on it, it will be made up of AFA members and adhering to the Declaration of Purpose of the AFA. Ultimately, the result can be that tightly knit and sizable community, perhaps with land and places on it with which to honor the gods. It starts simple and small and grows to be large and all-encompassing. Call it a tribe or call it a community, it is men and women of the AFA growing together and helping each other. This is the direction in which the AFA is moving. We'll never force anyone to join such an association, and we will always respect the privacy of the individual. But for those members who want to join with others, we will facilitate that. If you are ready to find your way home to the spiritual path of our forebears, the Asatru Folk Assembly invites you to consider membership. Please visit our website at www.runestone.org, read our Declaration of Purpose, and if what you see there speaks to your soul, send us a membership application. Together, let us write the next chapter in the history of the sons and daughters of Europe. Only when we realize we are a river will we stop drowning in puddles. This is Steve McNallen of the Asatru Folk Assembly, www.runestone.org. See you next time.
Yeah.